Hello friend, this is Ryan Hicks of TalkToProfit.com, and today I want to talk to you about how employee problems are often not their fault. Very often in business, the employee issues are a responsibility and caused by the employer or the entrepreneur, especially if you have a small business, because you're more hands-on than if you're some corporation with 10,000 employees. You as the CEO are never really going to be interacting with every one of those 10,000 employees. And you'll have levels of management that will keep people structured and doing the things they need to be doing, hopefully. But I want to tell you some of my own experiences in business and life and things I did, and I thought it was the employee's issue. Like, why is the employee not working as much? But what I realized was a lot of times I was expecting the employee to be like me. And that's a fundamental flaw, because if they were like me, they wouldn't be working for me. They would have their own business. They would be hiring employees themselves. They wouldn't be working for me. And they're not going to think like me. You know, I get into something, I see something needs to be done, I do it. And I just go and get stuff done. But for a lot of people, they need to be told what exactly they need to do. Not because they're dumb, not because they're not competent, or they're not self-starters or anything like that. It's because they don't know. And sometimes they don't want to mess something up. They don't want to make a mistake. And if you have not properly explained exactly what to do, that's on you if they're not doing enough, or if they're not doing things the right way. You haven't explained it right. And it's not fair to them to expect them to be doing things the way you would do it when you haven't even explained it to them. I knew a person who had an assistant, an executive assistant, and they would tell them literally step by step how to do something. Here's how I like my coffee made, exactly into excruciating detail. But that assistant liked that because they knew exactly what they needed to do. They knew exactly how it would be done to perfection. And there was no way of making a mistake in that. Sometimes it can be frustrating from an employee. And if you're an entrepreneur and you've been an entrepreneur for a while, you've been outside of that employee system for a while, so you may not really remember some of these things. But if the employee doesn't know exactly what they need to do, that can be very frustrating, especially if they are a go-getter. They are a good person. They want to work. But you haven't outlined exactly what they need to do. You've made it more difficult for them, or you've presumed upon them that they're magically going to figure something out that you haven't explained to them exactly how they need to do it. It's not fair to them, and you can't get the best results out of them. Matter of fact, you may be setting them up for failure. For example, in my own businesses, I had an employee that wasn't doing a whole lot. But I realized that when they came there, I gave them very little to do, and they weren't trying to be lazy. They didn't want to bother me. They saw I was just constantly busy and working and doing things, and they didn't want to bother me to ask what more to do. So they weren't getting a lot done because I had not properly laid out the things they need to do and gave them enough to have more than enough to do during the day. They wanted to work. These weren't lazy people. These weren't people who just wanted to sit around and do nothing. I had failed to provide them enough work for the day, and them just being nice people didn't want to interrupt me working because they saw my work as more valuable in the company. And that if they bothered me, they were going to take away from something I was doing that was high value work. Now, some people would have fired that person. Oh, they're not doing enough. But I realized immediately what was going on, apologized to them for my failings in that, and then made sure that every time they showed up, they had more than enough work to do. Everything was detailed specifically, even written down exactly how to do stuff. And for some employees who liked videos, I made videos of how to do these exact tasks. So there's no way of messing it up. They had plenty of work, and that person became ultra productive. But they wouldn't have been if I'd blamed them. Oh, they're just not doing enough. And here's the thing. This isn't so you can beat yourself up as an entrepreneur and say, oh, I'm failing my employees. No, it's just you have so many things going on. Sometimes you just expect when you hire somebody and you see they're competent, you just expect them to just pick up and know where to go and know what to do and to think like you do, because you would just go in there, see something, and start working and getting good results. That's not how everybody thinks. Oftentimes they're afraid to act. Even if they think I could do this thing over here, they don't want to mess things up. They don't know exactly how you want it done, and they need to know exactly how you want it done. And I have to stress this. It's not fair to them for you to hire somebody and not give them all the tools to be able to succeed. That's all on you. That's not on them. Now, you may have employees that are lazy. You may have employees that don't want to work. But I found most often, those kind of people aren't going and showing up in the first place. They're sitting at home collecting unemployment or welfare or doing whatever. They're not showing up trying to work somewhere. So it's really unfair to expect that, oh, all employees just want to do the least they can do and they don't want to work. They don't want to put forth a lot of effort. Well, you got to understand, they may not be capable of doing the amount and level of productivity that you are able to do. So it's unfair to expect that from them. But many of them will perform at their highest level, but you have to give them all the tools to do it. You have to detail. I know that sometimes can be frustrating, but it's going to be so much easier to do that little bit of work right now, writing out exactly what they need to do, step by step, not missing any steps because it's easy or it seems obvious, step by step, and let them run with it. I had an employee I did this for once. They were the ones that brought this to my attention when I explained to them how to do something. Oh, I didn't know there was that step in there. You didn't mention that. And I realized that I just presumed certain things and unfairly expected them to have that same presumption, that same knowledge that they didn't have. I didn't explain it. And you're going to make mistakes as an entrepreneur. It's not about beating yourself up, especially if you've been an entrepreneur for a while, because you're kind of in a different position than you were if you ever were an employee. You're thinking differently. You approach things differently. You approach problems differently. You solve them. That's not the way most people think, especially when it's not their business. They don't want to mess things up. It's not because they don't want to. You haven't given them the authority to do that. They don't even know what exactly needs to be done. They may not even know there's a problem because they haven't had enough information to even diagnose that. So if your employees are underperforming, you feel like these are good people, but they don't seem to really be getting a lot done, I want you to really step back and think, have I explained everything in detail? Have I given them enough to do? Maybe you are not expecting enough from them. So you're not giving them enough work. And so they're completing the little bit of work you give them. And this is one of those things where if you give them a little bit of work, they'll kind of naturally space that out throughout the day, however many hours they're working, to complete those tasks, because that's kind of what you've given them. And if you gave them even more, they'll complete all that in the same amount of time. This is not to be a slave driver and to do the proverbial of making the children of Israel and Egypt make bricks without straw. No, this is give them more work. Maybe they can do more. Maybe you've been expecting so little of them that that's all they can achieve because that's what you've been expecting. And if you expect more and you give them more, see how they do. Maybe they can do better. And in many cases, they do want to do better. For an employee, because they're thinking differently than an entrepreneur, many times it can be super frustrating to not have enough work during the day, to just have to space things out and just barely do stuff and not be performing at your highest level. That's not good for a lot of employees either. You may be thinking about this stereotypical employee that wants to do as little as possible and get paid for it, but that's not most employees. I know there may be some, and those people you let go, let them go work somewhere else where they can be happy. But presuming that you've hired good people, they want to work and they want to be ultra productive. So make sure that you've given them every tool to do that. Make sure you've explained every process. And in many cases, explain the why of the process, so they can understand how it works, because that could be a tool for them to make improvements. And here's one of those things. Give them some leverage to make improvements. All you got to do it the exact way. If they can see something in that, because you've been doing it one way for years, and you trained everybody to do it only one way, maybe they, with fresh eyes on that situation, can see a way of improving it. And if they do, and it's correct, and it improves the situation, it makes the process better, it makes the product better, or it makes it get delivered faster to the customer, whatever it may be, some improvement, then implement that. Don't be prideful and say, well, we're going to do it my way. That's the only way to do it. No. If you can improve, improve. If they have a method of improvement, take that under advisement. If it works, do it. Implement it immediately. Don't delay. Don't go back and forth on it. Just get it going. But my friend, you can have a great employee, but you have to be a great employer. You have to be somebody who is in leadership and gives them the tools, gives them enough work so that they can rise to the top and they can be productive and ultra successful. And that's what you want for them. And that'll make your business grow. That'll help them grow as a person. And it'll make everybody improve all around. My friend, I pray this is a blessing for you. May God bless you richly.